All right, so the time is 6:05 and we are going to go ahead and get started. So a good afternoon or good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming to our town hall on Know Your Rights. My name is Dr. Delia Housel, and I have the honor of serving as the Chief of Staff to Councilmember Wendell Felder. We understand that these are unprecedented times in our city and in our ward, and we are very excited about this dynamic group of speakers that we have scheduled to present this evening. And so without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. On the screen, you'll see our agenda for this evening. We will hear from Councilmember Felder, who will provide just updates on the federal takeover. We will also hear from Mrs. Patrice Willoughby, who is the Chief of Policy and Legislative Affairs at the NAACP. She'll be discussing or helping us have a better understanding of what federalization means and both local and national policy implications. We'll also hear from Attorney Andrew Clarke, who is a managing partner at District Legal Group. Attorney Clarke will be sharing information about how to stay safe during this time and understanding how to understand or and how to have a good sense of what your legal rights are should you be arrested or detained. And then lastly, we'll hear from all of you all around some of the questions and the concerns that you have. And then Councilmember Felder will wrap us up with a call to action and share some next steps. I would like to provide a couple of logistics and housekeeping for everyone on the call this evening. We do want to encourage everyone to be active and engaged and share questions about anything that you have that's being presented this evening. And to do that, we're asking for you to utilize the Q&A feature to ask questions. We also want you to utilize the chat box to ask questions and to engage in dialogue. We do ask that you be respectful in any dialogue that is sent via the chat box or the Q&A box. As a reminder, today's session is being live streamed. We are very excited about that. The session is being live streamed on YouTube, and it is also being recorded. The recording will be made available on our website, or you can go back and visit YouTube as well. Our team will be dropping the link to our YouTube page in the chat box. We encourage you to share it broadly with all of your friends and neighbors. Lastly, we will be asking for you to complete a post survey at the end of the webinar to provide your feedback. We want to make sure that this webinar provides useful information to you. And so we encourage everyone to please share your feedback on the webinar at the end of the session. All right, and so with that, I am excited to turn it over to our council member, Ward 7 Council Member Wendell Felder. Councilmember Felder, the floor is yours.
Dr. Hassel, good evening, Ward 7 neighbors and friends. I want to begin by thanking you all for joining us this evening for such a very important conversation. Over the past several weeks, many of you have reached out to my office asking, hey, council member, how do you feel about what's happening in our city? And what are you doing to make sure that Ward 7 families are safe? And I want to be clear with you tonight. Under no circumstances do I support, nor do I believe that sending in a surge of federal law enforcement officers is the right way to keep our community safe. Safety in our neighborhoods isn't just about more policing, it's about making the right investments, investing in people, in our agencies, and in the future of the city. History has repeatedly shown us that when a predominantly Black and Brown community have limited resources, coupled with over-policing, that tends to lead to mass incarceration. Now, if we are given the resources we need, then we can govern ourselves effectively. That means more MPD officers patrolling our streets, more support for city agencies like DPW to keep our neighborhoods clean and safe, and more resources that keep our young people engaged in positive and productive activities. These are the kinds of strategies that reduce crime, strengthen trust, and beautify our communities. Now, since the initial announcement of the surge in law enforcement officers, I have and I'm still actively participating in ride alongs with MPD commanders that represent our ward to get a better look and or firsthand visual of what's happening across our community. Furthermore, my office sent out a letter to each of the principals across the ward to share with their faculty and parents about school safety tips. And finally, we have been in contact with the ACLU DC, who has provided us with resources to help neighbors know their rights. Now, in addition to the work of my office, here's the sad reality. The District of Columbia is not a state. That means that we have very little tools available to help us fight against the federal government's effort to go after our statehood. I'm sorry, our home rule. And that's why statehood is so important. What statehood is about giving us, not Congress, not federal agencies, the power to decide what works best for our families, our children, and most importantly, our communities. So I'm grateful that we're coming together tonight to talk openly about what federalizing means for us here in Ward 7. And I look forward to hearing from our expert speakers, but most importantly, I look forward to hearing from neighbors on such an important conversation. So with that, I will turn things back over to my Chief of Staff, Dr. Hasil.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Councilmember Felder, for that warm welcome and just laying the foundation around where we are and what our office has been doing. So with that, I'm really excited to introduce our first speaker, Mrs. Patrice Willoughby. Patrice Willoughby serves as a Chief of Policy and Legislative Affairs at the NAACP, leading efforts to advance the association's public policy agenda. Patrice served as Chief of Staff and Counsel to the late Congresswoman Stephanie Tubbs Jones of Ohio, and as an Executive Director of the Congressional Black Caucus from 2008 to 2010. After leaving Capitol Hill, she served the Obama administration at the General Services Administration and later entered the private sector to lead the financial services practice at Signal Group, a subsidiary of Wiley Law. Patrice holds a Bachelor's of Arts in Music from Case Western University, a Master of Arts from the University of Cincinnati, and a Juris Doctorate from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where she studied international law at the University of Groningen, Netherlands. She is the recipient of numerous awards. In 2004 and 2005, she was nominated by Washingtonian Magazine as one of Washington, D.C.'s 500 most influential in policy. Patrice is a board member of the Women's Institute for a Secure Retirement, In Street Village, which is a housing and recovery services program for women experiencing homelessness, and the Fort DuPont Ice Arena, right, in the Great Ward 7. She is a life member of the NAACP and a 33-year member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Willoughby. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Houssail. I'm really just a sister that lives in Ward 5, and I've been on the board of Fort DuPont in Ward 7 for about 10 years and love to see the families and kids. And the rink is being rebuilt. Hope to see you over there soon when we open. But thank you so much for inviting me to be with you here, because this is an unprecedented time in our nation's history. Councilmember Felder reflected on home rule. And just to give some historic background, the Home Rule Act of 1973 gave DC the power to elect a mayor and council, but there are some significant deficiencies in the control that DC residents are able to exercise on their own behalf. Congress still retains a lot of control over the district as with respect to its laws, with respect to its budget, and in the ability of the federal government to interfere in the local laws of Washington, D.C. Because of this limited ability, the district remains critically vulnerable, and when there are elected representatives in the U.S. Congress that may not value the district and the richness of diversity of people who live here as the seat of government of the United States. And that is the pretext under where we find ourselves right now. You know, there are troops in the streets. You've all seen them. And let's talk a little bit about the historical aspect of why this hits so hard for ourselves in our communities. I'm going to share my screen. I think, let's see, I need to, there we go. A little bit up. Okay. So, in terms of the constitutional background of the situation we find ourselves in, the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution is part of the Bill of Rights, and that prohibits unreasonable searches and seizures. You know, Attorney Andrew is going to go into more of the specifics of how to interact with police. But it's important to understand the context and the role of the entities that have been deployed here in Washington, D.C., because above all, we want everyone to remain safe. That requires that we're all going to have to slow down, take a deep breath, and have a plan in mind if we encounter these aspects of law enforcement that have been deployed here in the District of Columbia. The current policy that's been used is Title 32 of the U.S. Code. That is an emergency power that allows the president to ask the governor of one state to send the National Guard into another state, even above the objections of the ruling body of that state. And as you know, the district is not a state. And so the president is able to do this unilaterally. It's important to keep this in mind because National Guard, the role of National Guard is to help in emergencies. These are people who live in our own communities and who are part of the U.S. military, either the Army or the United States Air Force. Their role is generally to help domestically in situations involving natural disasters or civil unrest. When the president asks guardsmen from outside of the district to come into the district, that means that you're more than likely not speaking with someone who is a neighbor and who lives here in Washington, D.C. And that's important because National Guardsmen don't really want to be in this domestic role where they are accompanying law enforcement. It is not part of their core mission because they are focused on helping people in their own community. Generally speaking, the president cannot, and the military does not deploy against domestic citizens within the United States. The governing law around this is called the Posse Comitatus statute, which prohibits the use of the military against civilians except under certain situations that fall under a rule that's called the Insurrection Act. That's a very old law. It was enacted in 1807, and it allows the president to deploy the military where there are situations that are involving civil unrest and violence. Now, we all know that the crime statistics in Washington, D.C. have been falling a lot over the past couple of years. And from the interviews that DC residents have given, people love their city. I love our city. And so it was unnecessary to deploy the U.S. military here. However, the presence of the military does create a hazard, and we need to be aware of what their role is, as well as the role of the National Guard. You may have also read about the fact that the National Guard is now armed. In Washington, D.C., members of the Guard began to carry their service weapons, such as M4 rifles and M17 handguns, recently. But not all members of the Guard use firearms, particularly the administrative members of the Guard. It's an unnatural role for them because, again, their role is often to assist in natural disasters. But here, guardsmen have been deployed in a role to support law enforcement. Some people may wonder, how long is this military occupation going to take place? The general rule is that a president can exert local control over a police department and after the guard and of the guard for 30 days. After that period, the president has to go to Congress and ask Congress for a resolution that agrees to a longer deployment. There are no limitations on how long the National Guard can actually be deployed within a specific region. In DC, the National Guard was mobilized on August 11th, and that 30 days will end on Wednesday, September 10th. Now, what does that mean for our own safety? That means that we all need to be very conscious and mindful of what may happen around that time, and also take pains to ensure that we all stay very calm in the second week of September, and urge your family members and yourselves to be very mindful that that 30-day period is ending, and we don't want to have any reason for the Guard to be deployed even further. I'm going to see if I can scroll down. I might be stopped here at, let me see if I can page down further.
And Miss Willoughby, I have it up as well. So if you want to tell me what section you want me to.
Yes, can you go to page 3, please?
Okay. Yes, we're on page at the top.
Yes, I've covered the arming of the National Guard. What I really wanted to handle is what's the role of immigration and customs enforcement, because as Councilmember Felder has referenced, there are ICE agents which are out in the streets. The recent budget bill that passed provided funding for 10,000 additional agents for immigration and customs enforcement to be hired under the Department of Homeland Security. The mission of ICE is for immigration enforcement. That means that they're responsible for detaining, deporting, and convicting unauthorized immigrants. They also help in international investigations on crime and terrorism. But that means that ICE does not have a function for U.S. citizens, and and its function is limited with respect to people who are here legally. The department was created in 2002 after 9/11, and formerly its functions were under two separate agencies, the Treasury Department and the U.S. Department of Justice. That has implications for if you encounter ICE, which we will go into later. But ICE does not have a role generally in domestic law enforcement. And so The agreements that you see right now between ICE and local police are based in a 1996 law that is the Immigration and Nationality Act that provides some authority to turn local police into ICE agents, and it also provides the authority for local police to give information to the immigration authorities as well. And as we see around the country, police departments have some have cooperated, some have not cooperated, because, of course, generally speaking, local police do not want to be immigration authorities as well. They're not trained in that capacity. And the agents that have been recently hired, the hiring is taking place so quickly that adequate training has not been provided to a lot of those agents, as well as they are encountering a lot of burnout because of the mandate to arrest 3,000 people on a weekly basis, which puts a lot of pressure on them to just arrest people. And they've been catching people who are citizens as well as legal immigrants, which has created a lot of stress, so that Homeland Security has actually um, added a lot of incentives for people to sign on to be ICE agents, as well as doing things like dropping the enlistment age, because this is not a function of government that most people want to be involved in. So you should know that as the backdrop when you're encountering any of these folks. Local policing has its function, the National Guard has its function, and Immigrations and Customs Enforcement has its function. All of these are separate and distinct, and they have an implication on how you should be prepared to engage them when or if you meet them in community. And so I will pause there, and so we can go on to sort of on the ground interactions with police.
Thank you so much, Ms. Willoughby. That was an amazing summary of where we are, and we are grateful to have you. Just as a reminder for our participants, I know you probably have lots of questions for Mrs. Willoughby. Please use the Q&A function or the chat box to put any questions there, and we will address all of those once we finish wrap up with all of our speakers. So with that, I am really excited about our next guest speaker here, and I will be sharing his bio with you all. So our next guest speaker is Attorney Andrew Clarke. Attorney Clarke is a native of Westchester County, New York. He is a leading attorney in the Washington, D.C. area, known for his tenacity, legal expertise, and commitment to justice. He is a second-generation lawyer and first-generation Jamaican American. He has dedicated his career to defending individuals, advocating for marginalized communities, and challenging systemic injustices. Andrew earned his JD from the George Washington University Law School and began his career clerking for judges on the Arlington County Circuit Court. He later practiced commercial litigation before founding his own law firm in 2016 to focus on civil litigation, criminal defense, and personal injury. In 2017, Andrew gained national attention for his role in the J20 case, where he discovered the government withheld evidence that led to the dismissal of charges for over 60 defendants. He has since built a reputation for success in complex jury trials, including full acquittals in high-stake criminal cases. Andrew's civil rights work includes representing clients. Andrew's civil rights work includes representing activists during the 2020 Black Lives Matter protest, helping overturn an unconstitutional curfew. He has also argued and won appeals before the Supreme Court of Maryland. His police shooting cases have garnered national attention, and in 2024, he secured 5 not guilty verdicts and prevented a mandatory 30-year federal sentence for a client. Currently, Attorney Clarke is the managing partner of District Legal Group, a Washington, D.C. based full-service law firm. And with that, it is our pleasure to welcome to you all Attorney Clarke. And Attorney Clarke, I believe your slides show your deck is up, so you can just let
Thank
me
you
know if
so
you want to
much.
go to the next slide.
Yes, thank you so much, Ms. Housel, and thank you so much, Councilman Felder and Ms. Willoughby. It was a pleasure to hear you speak and you just letting us know everything that's going on and understanding it from a very high level and breaking that down for us. I know I was taking notes, so I hope everyone else was too. It's very important that when we're going through these tough times, and as you heard, I've been through the first administration for Trump where there were a lot of protests, and I went through the George Floyd protests as well. We have to be strategic. It's not enough to just do one type of protesting, one type of action. We have to be strategic in everything that we're doing. And having a webinar like this is part of that strategy. Because if the people of Ward 7 and the people of the District of Columbia don't know about their rights, then the rights are going to be trampled on and the Constitution is going to fall apart. So it's very important that we all know our rights and that the information that you've learned here today, that you share it with other people, either by word, whether you're at a happy hour or you're at a barbecue or you're talking online with friends or you're talking in person with friends. Just share this information so everyone knows how to act because it's affecting all of us. So we can go on to the first slide here. So the first thing that I want to talk about is what to do when approached by MPD or federal officers. People always say that if you're not doing anything wrong, then why don't you submit to authority? I think that idea has some merit, but also if everyone just submits to authority, then it tramples on our Fourth Amendment right against search and seizure. If the officers just believe culturally, everyone is just going to submit to their authority. So when I think about that, I think about, well, why are we not challenging police? Why are we not asserting our rights? And right now is more important. It's the most important time, I think, in recent history, even going through everything in 2016 and 2020. It's the most significant time in recent history that our Fourth Amendment has been challenged. And unfortunately, the District of Columbia right now is being used as a test to see if this can work here, then it can potentially work anywhere. And there's a lot of grassroots movement going on, Free DC, Harriet's Wildest Dreams, Life After Release. There's a lot of organizations out there that are taking steps to educate the public. So the first thing that I want you to think about is the officers can only talk to you like I'm talking to you here now, or if somebody walks up to the street and they can talk to you, they can say whatever they want to you, they can ask you whatever question they want to ask you. When they cross the line into a constitutional violation or a stop, right, is if they're asserting some type of police power over you. So the first thing that you want to do, especially now, is stay calm and polite. Most MPD officers have body-worn camera, but a lot of the officers that are coming from other jurisdictions, a lot of the National Guard, they may not have body-worn camera. So you want to make sure that you're keeping yourself safe by not showing any sign of agitation. The next thing that you want to do is ask, am I free to leave? And the reason that you want to do that is because if they say no, then that is going to automatically constitute a stop. They're asserting their authority over you, their legal authority over you. So that's a paramount question. I know if you guys are looking online, there's a lot of videos and a lot of information around saying that when police are approaching you, am I free to leave? And that's the reason behind that, is because it becomes an involuntary stop if they tell you, no, you're not free to leave. That means that you're actually stopped. Do not run or resist. If you run or resist, that's causing a whole separate type of criminal case and can lead to a lot of different scenarios, including death. So you do not want to run and you do not want to appear to be resisting. Let a powerful attorney come in. The Public Defender Service in the District of Columbia is the best public defender service in the country. The CJA panel has some of the most dedicated and expert attorneys on that panel. So you want to make sure that they have everything that they need on the back end to be able to get your case dismissed, especially if your Fourth Amendment rights have been violated during that search, during that seizure, during that arrest. But if you run and resist, then that creates a whole separate charge, and anything that happens after that, they can point back to the fact that, oh, well, he took off, so at that point, that's a whole nother charge, so I was able to arrest him at that point, or worse. And we don't want to see anything happen to anyone in Ward 7. You have the right to remain silent. Now, that comes with a caveat. You can't just remain silent and not answer any questions. You have to answer basic biographical questions. What's your name? What's your address? Do you have your ID on you? But you don't have to answer any questions such as, what are you doing here? What's that in your bag? Are you holding anything? You don't have to answer any of those questions. Now, I'm giving you general information. There is specific information, especially for people that carry firearms, that I'm not going to get into today, but generally you should know that you have the right to remain silent. And please, no matter how nice the officers may seem, they're trying to get evidence against you. Right now, we're seeing a lot of officers that are taking liberties with the president and his position on police authority, and they're going in and they're being very aggressive with people. But then there's a tactic that was happening before this shift, where officers were being overly nice. And by being overly nice, they were doing that to try to get information to place you under arrest. So please remember that you have that right to remain silent, except you give your name, you give your address, and that's it. That's all they need. If they're going to write you a citation for a broken taillight, let them write the citation and keep it moving. They ask to search your car, you say no. They ask you to stay here and talk to them. You ask them if you're free to leave. Remember those things. If you don't remember anything else that I tell you today, remember the phrase, am I free to leave? Delia, we can go to the next one. Now, de-escalating is a tough subject right now. I've been seeing a lot of videos, I've been receiving a lot of inquiries where no matter what you're doing, no matter how passive or how polite you're being to these officers, a lot of them coming from other jurisdictions, from other places, that they're still being very aggressive. They don't understand the culture, they don't understand the geographic area that they're coming from all over. And this is dangerous and creating a dangerous situation in the District of Columbia. The Metropolitan Police Department, I think, has taken great strides in trying to build community trust. There was a lot of work that still needed to be done, but they have been taking great strides to build that community trust. And within 11 days, that trust is gone. And this is the number one reason why, is because a lot of these officers are not trained in de-escalation tactics. So we as citizens, especially because a lot of them have body-worn cameras, we have to make sure that we're protecting our rights and keeping ourselves safe, keeping our loved ones safe. The one thing I want to tell y'all is when you see someone that's being pulled over by police, please pull out your camera to the extent that you can stay and record. It is your right to do so. Record and document, because you could save someone's life. The first thing I want to tell you to do is keep your hands visible. I've seen way too many cases where police officers threaten someone, pull a gun out on someone, and claim that they refuse to show their hands. So at all times, keep your hands visible. Speak slowly and clearly. Am I being stopped? Am I free to go? Say your name slowly and be very calm during the interaction. If you're by yourself, ask for a supervisor. Ask for someone else on the patrol to be there. Ask them if their body-worn camera is on. You can do all of these in nice ways without being combative. But you have the right to ask these questions. You have the right to ask for these things. Do not argue. Do not argue with the police officers. No one in the history of time has talked their way out of a police officer arresting them. If a police officer is going to arrest you, he's going to arrest you. There's no way to talk your way out of it. But don't make things worse by escalating the situation. If the police officer is asking you whether or not they can search, think of vampires. Vampires, you gotta tell them that you gotta give them permission to come into your home. Same thing with police officers. They don't have the right to do it. You have to give them permission to either come into your home or to your vehicle. So when they ask you that question, they're asking you that question because they know that they need your consent, and do not provide that consent, no matter how clean your car is. Think about how many other people this officer is doing it to, how many other rights that this officer has trampled on just in the hours before they interacted with you, especially when we have these checkpoints going on. So if we all collectively assert our rights, they have no choice but to adhere to those rights. Go to the next one, Dylan. We can go to the next one, Dylan. So
Yes, it's a little bit of a lag, but it is at the next slide on my end. So sorry about that. It should be coming up shortly.
oh no, it's okay. It's okay. So the next thing that you want to make sure that you're doing if you're detained or arrested, at that point, you definitely, under no circumstances, should be giving any statements. You should always ask, especially when there's body-worn camera involved, if you're under arrest. It's very important that you know that, because there's a difference between, in DC, there's a difference between being detained and being under arrest. They can detain you for a brief time for investigation, or they can arrest you, to which they believe they have probable cause to arrest you for. And the resisting comes up here again because I want to drill that in everyone's head, that resisting causes a whole nother charge and can lead to fatal consequences. If the police officer is going to arrest you, no matter what is going on in your life, no matter how unlawful you think it is, you're giving them a right to use more force against you by resisting or by trying to flee. And request a lawyer immediately. You may not get one immediately, but the law says once you request one, they're no longer able to ask you questions. And I see a question here about badge numbers. So in DC, it's a more of a cultural thing that they do give you, their badge number if you request it, or they identify themselves. That's more so if someone is coming to your home or doing an investigation and you're concerned about your safety at that point, then yes, you can ask for their badge number. You ask for them to identify themselves. When you're encountering an officer on a traffic stop or an on the street stop, they don't necessarily have to give you that information if they don't want to, and a lot of times it's publicly displayed. But if they're a plainclothes officer and you're really unsure on whether or not they are an officer, then yes, absolutely, you should be asking them to give you their badge number or to some kind of identification. themselves. But I see a lot of videos about, officers being asked for their badge number. Some comply, some don't. There's no hard and fast law or rule that says that they have to do that, especially if they're already identified with their uniform. So the checkpoints in DC are also they're at least from what I've been seeing. I haven't been tracking them, but from what I've been hearing and seeing, they're at certain points when you're entering in the city. If you go onto Instagram or TikTok, there are a lot of memes going around, and I don't know if they're changing them every single day. But they're mostly entry points, if you can imagine, coming in through Maryland. There is one coming in through Virginia, but most of them are entry points from people coming in through Maryland. All right, and we can go to the next slide. Okay, so this is leading to the question that's in there. So if you're really concerned about an interaction that you're having with an officer, and you have an ID or you don't have an ID, you should definitely make sure that you're getting some kind of information, at least for your report. I deal with a lot of police brutality cases, and for you to have any kind of recourse afterwards, you need to know the CCN number. That's what it's called in DC, and you need to know who the officer is that either arrested you or detained you or assaulted you. So please make sure that you have that information. Although they're not required to give it to you, you should still be asking that information all the way down to if you go down to the station. And the one thing I want to talk to you about is the process of being arrested. A lot of people on this line have not been arrested. I would wish that no one has been arrested on this line, but unfortunately, this is the world that we're living in. So I want to give you a little bit of an overview of what that looks like so you understand, because it's a very scary situation when someone that you love or yourself is removed from the community involuntarily. And when it happens, the DDC process, you wouldn't know that the person has been arrested if you're not around them. So how do you find that out? You can call the local district that they're in and find out whether or not that person is at the station, because they initially, when someone's arrested, they go to the station. If it's been more than about 12 to 20 hours, at that point, they could be going down to what's called arraignment court in DC. Everyone calls it C10 because that's the courtroom that it's in. So if you do find out, you call the station, you find out the person's been arrested, and you ask them, are they going to be released? Sometimes they'll release someone for low-level misdemeanors. They'll release them right from the station. If they're not released right from the station and they have to go see the magistrate judge or the magistrate judge the next day at arraignment court, then they'll be held overnight or until they get to see the judge the next day. There's actually a cutoff time sometime in the morning where they no longer allow someone to see a judge that same day. They have to wait until the next day. So that's information that you can get from the local district as well, especially if you know the time of arrest. DC publishes their lockup lists for attorneys every single day. So every single day, attorneys that are on the list to receive lockups, they'll be able to know, like around 10 o'clock, what time or how many people are locked up and what the names are and what the charges are of the individuals that have been locked up either the night before or the morning of, and then there's a cutoff list after that. So if you hear that someone's arrested and you know they're going to go to arraignment court the next day in DC, that court typically starts around 1:30. So if you're there around 12:30 or 1, you go to the Superior Court and you go down to the C level, which is 2 floors down from which is 3 floors down from I'm sorry, 2 floors down from the main level. And when you go down to the C level, you'll be able to talk to the deputies, and they have a board that will tell you everyone's name and when their arraignment will be. Arraignment court can go anywhere from 1:30 to 6 o'clock. And, with everything going on right now, they've been going all the way into the other day, they went until 1 a.m. So you have to pack your patients. Don't expect to leave there anytime soon because you don't know if someone is going to be the last person that's arraigned. It's completely not random, but there's a system that the U.S. attorneys go through to determine who is going to be seen and who's going to be papered and not papered, who's going to be released immediately, and who has to go and see a judge. So you want to make sure that you're there at 1:30, that you're finding out who the assigned attorney is, and that you're letting them know that you're there for your loved one, and they'll be able to tell you maybe that person has already been released, and they could either be released right from the courthouse or from the district that they were arrested in, but you want to make sure that you immediately get contact with that attorney. For the after the arraignment court is over, if you're going to be released at that point, they're going to release you straight from C10. So they'll take the cuffs off of you. Sometimes they'll have leg restraints on you as well, and they'll release you right from C10. If they are going to be statutorily held, then you'll have to come back another day to determine whether or not that individual is going to be released or not. So that's a very important information to know, because if that ever happens, and this is happening to people, whether you're committing crimes or not, sadly to say, these days in DC, you need to know what that process is so you'll be able to protect your loved one. So we could go to the next one. So I put here a series of contacts that you can either screenshot, or later on this will be produced, but you can always go back and get these numbers so that you at least have these numbers, and we can quickly just go through those numbers. So the Public Defender Service, best public defender service in the country. I clerked there when I was in law school, and I learned so much that I became one of the best criminal defense attorneys in DC as a result of the early training I got from there. Some wonderful people, some wonderful advocates there. They take felony cases only. So if someone is charged with a felony, they'll go to the Public Defender Service. If they're charged with a misdemeanor, they have a CJ panel that has wonderful attorneys there as well. And they'll be able, they're more so private firms, and they'll be able to take the case as well. You'll just have to find out who is assigned. We can keep going on to the next one. And this is the clerk's office, where you can find out more information. If you have been charged, you'll be able to find out information about when you may not be able to find out when your next court is, but you'll be able to find out more things like what the case number is, or basic information that they'll give you over the phone. All right, keep going. Okay, this is a service, this website. If someone is arrested, I use either this service, or VineLink is another service that I use, where you can track someone that's been arrested and know when they've been released. The time, it's pretty accurate and up to date. Sometimes there is a lag in the information, but it's a very good resource to know if someone has been incarcerated or not. Next slide. All right, and then if you're ever looking for referral services, the DC Bar is able to do that for you. So if you contact the DC Bar, they'll be able to give you some names. We can go to the next one. And for non-citizens, they have the right to contact their consulate after an arrest, and the police are required to inform them of their right, whether or not they're doing it or not. We're not really sure, but that's something that is on us as the community members to make sure that you know that that right exists. Keep going. All right. All right, and this is for the ACLU of DC, the NAACP, and this is also, especially if there's concerns about excessive force, that you can call those numbers and they'll be able to assist you or point you in the right direction. All right. Well, thank you so much. This is, again, a very, very important subject for us to be talking about, not just because we're in DC, but because of the national implications. All eyes are on the district right now to see how we as a community handle this crisis, because it is a crisis. Me as a Black man, you would think I'm a lawyer. I have a nice life, but I'm still in fear of going into the District of Columbia right now. I'm still in fear of going downtown. I'm still in fear of driving anywhere in DC. In fact, since this has happened, I haven't driven in DC. And that's because of the fear that this National Guard is putting into us. So I share Councilmember Felder's position, and that this is not normal. And anyone, and including elected officials, that think that this is normal is trying to sell you a house out in Nevada that has beachfront property, because this is not something that we should allow in the nation's capital. And it's up to us to educate ourselves and to educate our neighbors on what our rights are in order to prevent this from happening and spreading throughout the United States. Thank you.
Awesome.
Attor-
Thank you so much, Attorney Clarke. That was some really great information. I hope everyone had an opportunity to take screenshots. If not, again, you can rewatch this on YouTube. I did want to note that we are really excited about also having two representatives from the Public Defender Services who Attorney Clarke spoke highly of, Mr. Collins and Mrs. Semyonova. Hope I got that correctly, but did you want to give you a few minutes just to say anything to the public since we have you on?
Everyone, it's nice to join you, and we're really just here to answer questions, if there are any that we can assist in.
Awesome. All right. So we will now go to the Q&A. I know that many of, and thank you all for joining. But I know that many folks have already put some questions in the chat box, and there's some answers that have been already added. Let's just take a look and see what we have. Now is the time. If you have any questions, we want to make sure that you are able to get those questions addressed. All right. So I'll go through some of the ones that I see in the chat box. And I know some of this may have already been answered, but I'll go ahead and drop some of these in, and if folks want to weigh in. The first one I see is from Olivia. She asks, do we have to carry any form of identification besides our driver's license? And this is mostly for naturalized U.S. citizens. So who'd like to take that one?
if you're a lawful, if you're a citizen, you're a citizen, period. And you have the right to remain silent. Immigration and Customs Enforcement does not have jurisdiction over citizens. It has jurisdiction over immigration. And so, you should use Attorney Clarke's guidelines and guidance in the way that you interact with police as a citizen of this country. If you're a lawful immigrant, the federal law requires that you carry an immigration document so that if you're asked for it, you can provide it. But there's a differentiation between being a lawful immigrant carrying a green card and being a citizen.
Awesome. Thank you, Mrs. Willoughby. I have another question here, and I think this is directed towards you, Attorney Clarke. It says, has your team considered educating residents and visitors on DC cannabis laws, i.e. public consumption in public spaces or cars, is this a way for law enforcement to engage? So I think this question is really looking to get more information around engagement when people are engaging in public consumption of substances in public spaces.
Yeah, it still is illegal to consume cannabis in public spaces. I've seen some instances where officers have gone onto private spaces where cannabis is being consumed and try to make arrests there, but it's still illegal to consume marijuana in public spaces.
The thing you have to remember about cannabis is, though, even though DC does not enforce cannabis laws, cannabis still remains on the federal schedule of controlled substances. And the police, in terms of FBI agents and any federal law enforcement, their jurisdiction is enforcing federal law. So if someone is smoking cannabis in a public space, then that would allow something like an investigative stop, which could lead to probable cause for a more intrusive search or arrest. So, just keep that in mind, that there is, and this is where home rule comes into play. DC has enacted its own set of laws about cannabis, but federal law still supersedes what DC has enacted. And so people need to be very careful when it comes to consuming cannabis in public and be aware of that structure that can create hazard.
And if I could just piggyback on what Attorney Clarke and Ms. Willoughby have said, so there is that federal superseding relationship, and it's illegal to possess any detectable amount of marijuana under federal law. That's just what the federal law is, and so that might put you in trouble in federal court. And then for DC, there are two different laws that deal with public consumption of alcohol, or public consumption of marijuana in public spaces, and then possessions of open containers of alcohol. And I think maybe we can put alcohol on the back burner, but it comes back and ends up being relevant to the marijuana. So in DC, it's unlawful for a person to consume marijuana in or upon a public space in any of the following places. And this is a street, alley, park, sidewalk, or parking area, a vehicle in or upon any street, alley, park, or parking area, or any place to which the public is invited. And that consuming, like what they mean by consuming or smoking, is inhaling or introducing it into your body, or holding or carrying a lighted roll of paper or lighted smoking equipment. So like a vape or something like that. So if any of that happens in any public space, any space to which the public is invited, or on a street or an alley or a park or a sidewalk or parking area, that's a crime under DC law that can be prosecuted in the DC court, DC Superior Court. There's a bit of a legal gray area about related to porches and different kinds of spaces that are connected to your home, but which could, in theory, be a part of a parking area, which is a kind of a legal term of art that's in this statute. We don't know. If you were my client, I would obviously fight to say that the porch is not a part of the parking area and that you can't be prosecuted on that basis, but there's no case on point that decides the issue authoritatively. So if people are trying to be careful, as far inside your house as possible is the safest place to consume, to avoid the legal ramifications of marijuana consumption or possession. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
And I have a follow-up question for you, Will, and Katya, if you can answer it. What are the status right now of vape cannabis pens? Are those still considered to be felony offense to possess that?
Let me get back to you on that. Let me look at it right now.
Okay.
And I will say this is, particularly relevant for young people. We have in the district many, a dearth of places for young people like 16 to 25 to go. And so, in many cases there, especially with the warm weather here, young folks are out in the park at night. They're talking with each other. They might be smoking a little weed, and we have to give everyone a warning and just encourage people to stay home. That's not easy because there is no place for young people to go. But if we want them to stay safe with the curfew in place, we really have to keep it real with our young people and let them know that we don't want them in the system. This is unfair. They should be able to gather peacefully, but that's not where we are right now.
Awesome. No, thank you. This is really great stuff. I mean, speaking of young people, I know someone asked about how the guard or police are handling minors. And I know, so any other advice or recommendations you can give around minors' interaction with law enforcement? Are there differences? Anything that stands out?
Um, I would say that I think it's up to the older generation to continue to remind the younger generation about how far we've come as a culture. And a lot of younger people that may have been born around the time that Barack Obama was president have never experienced times like this. And the older generation, millennials and above, we have experienced this. We have seen the videos of Rodney King being beaten. We have all been pulled over illegally. But the younger generation is just now starting to understand and experiencing that. So while we're feeling like we're going backwards 20, 30 years, they're feeling like this is something that's very new to them because they haven't had to experience this in their lifetime. So I don't think that as an older generation, we should be dismissive of the fact that they've grown up in a different life because this is the life that we were creating for them. So that's my advice for the younger people, and also with dealing with talking with younger people is understanding that perspective that they grew up in a very different time.
Awesome. Thank you. We have another question here. If someone is detained, will they automatically go to or through DC jail?
So they will not automatically go through DC jail. Typically, when somebody is detained, they first go to court. So they are transported to an MPD district. They go from the MPD district to central cell block, from the central cell block to the courthouse. And they go through that process before a detention decision is made. And then once a detention decision is made, only if the detention decision results in detention would they go to DC jail. That's the typical process. I wanted to add on with respect to young people that some information about fare evasion, because that may come up in the context of young people commuting, is that fare evasion is something that the council has dealt with multiple times over the last 5-6 years. And it is prohibited in the fare evasion statute, or the fare requirement statute rather, requires individuals to pay a fare or to present a valid transfer. And what it also requires is that if somebody does not present a fare or doesn't pay the fare, it requires that it's stopped, that they provide the name and address to the stopping officer so that they can be issued a civil notice of infraction for fare evasion. And at that point, it remains a civil infraction, and that a person who refuses to provide, under the DC code, a person who refuses to provide their name and address at that point, or provides an incorrect name and address at that point, is in violation and then can be detained. But with a name and address, the way that the council currently, the way that the council wrote the statute, it results in a civil infraction if the individual provides name and address correctly.
Awesome, thank you. Another question, how will one know if they have been, I guess, family members, how will you know if they've been quote unquote taken by DC, the feds, or ICE? Is there a way to find out where a loved one is? And that may be one of those ones we have to kind of come back to. I think we have heard this question before, and that's an answer that we may need to come back to, but that's a very good question. All right. Mrs. Miller asks, and if anyone wants to take this one, what happens after the 30-day federalization ends? How I didn't get to see the rest of that, but I know Ms. Willoughby, you spoke to the next steps after that. If you wanted to kind of share a little bit more or share what you shared earlier.
Sure. The president has to ask Congress for a joint resolution to extend the federalization, and that has to pass in the House and the Senate.
Awesome, thank you. All right, and so any other questions, comments? Don't see anything in the chat. This was really, really great information. I do, if there are no other questions, I'd love to give each speaker an opportunity just to share any parting remarks before we turn it back over to Councilmember Felder to close us out. No pressure, but just wanted to open it up for any parting remarks.
I want to build on what Attorney Clarke said in that these are unprecedented times, and we have to, just remember that people are don't have emotional memory of some situations like this before. And what we can do, and what every older person can do, is just encourage people to slow down, to take a deep breath, and to think before they respond, as well as focus in on knowing what your rights are, and remember that you always have the right to remain silent. And so sometimes the less you say, the much better off you are, and just keep your wits about you.
Thank you.
The last thing I will say is that we're all going through this. That's why I told you about me feeling like I can't even go into DC. And I've never, in the 13 years that I've lived here, I have never felt that way about DC. And right now, I feel that way. And it's not because of the people of DC, but it's because of the unwelcome visitors that we have. So that's why I'm asking everyone to share this information in any way possible, in any medium that you can. Share this information with your neighbors, with your friends, with your family, on your social media. Share something. You see it and you know that it's accurate, share it. And make sure that we all know what our rights are, because I'm telling you, this is not just going to stop in DC. If they can figure out how to do it here, how to pressure us into acquiescence, into submission, there's no doubt that they're going to try this in every single city, urban city in America.
Awesome. Thank you so much. With that, I will turn it over to Councilmember Felder.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hassel. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So again, I want to thank everyone for joining In terms of next steps, I'm working with the Executive Office of the Mayor, the Attorney General, and my council colleagues to make sure that DC residents are supported and that your civil rights are not being impacted. So I cannot overemphasize that if you see something, please say something. You can contact my office. You can file a complaint via the ACLU's hotline as well as through MPD. I also want to make sure that residents remain safe. So I strongly encourage you not to agitate federal law enforcement officers. And lastly, this experience has taught us the importance of statehood. So again, I encourage you all to continue fighting for statehood and holding Democrats on the Hill responsible for supporting our statehood efforts. So with that, I just want to thank everyone again. And we're here as a resource if you need me. And thank you again, guest speakers and neighbors, for joining tonight's call. Hopefully folks walked away with something that they didn't already know.
Awesome. Thank you again, Councilmember Felder. We do have a quick poll that we wanted to launch before folks hopped off, but the question is, how do you feel about the federalization of MPD? You heard a lot of great information this evening. How are you feeling? And then what are your primary concerns? We want to hear those as well. I think folks are coming in. Please quickly, everyone should have seen those pop up. And after this poll, we'll put a QR code up that provides our feedback survey. Again, we want to hear from you in terms of what your thoughts are about this webinar. As Councilmember mentioned, we want to definitely give a warm applause, a thank you to Mrs. Willoughby from the NAACP for gracing us with her presence and sharing some really wonderful information. We also want to thank you, Attorney Clarke, for sharing information on how residents can stay safe and what to do should you encounter the law enforcement during these times. And then also to Will and Katia, thank you so much for the Public Defender Service for just joining the line and helping to, again, shed more information. All right, so it looks like most people have, quite a few people have responded to the poll, so we'll go ahead on and wrap that up and share some of our results. But most people are strongly opposed to the federalization, as we suspected. Thank you guys for that. And we'll definitely view those primary concerns as well. So with that, this concludes our presentation. We do want to, again, put a QR code up. We want to hear back from you in terms of what your experience was on this webinar. And if you want to hear more information from our office about what to do and how to stay safe. So I'll be putting that up shortly. But again, thank you all so much. Oh, and I'm sorry, I also want to thank our partners, the Ward 7 Democrats, for also partnering with us on this very important event. So thank you all to our Ward 7 Dems. I see many of them on the call. We want to thank them as well for partnering. All right. Cool. And so with that, I'm going to put the QR code up here. We can get to it. And then if you could please scan it and give us your feedback, we'd greatly appreciate it. And we wish you all a very safe and a wonderful holiday weekend. Thank you.